Welcome to the show. I'm Danella, and here's what's happening now. Thousands are gathering in our country, and they're headed to Washington, D.C. for the March for Our Lives. We'll get into more of that in just a moment. But speaking of our nation's capital, political pop is on deck. And of course, in our world this week, gossip clouding up real news in our country. I think it's on purpose. We'll delve a bit deeper in our world. But as I mentioned just a moment ago, the March for Our Lives happening in Washington, D.C., thousands are preparing to descend on our nation's capital to fight for more gun control and fight against gun violence. Now, here is an interesting coincidence that just came out the other day. The march happening this Saturday is on the 20th anniversary of one of the most deadliest school shootings of its time. This was back in 1998. The school was Westside Middle School in Jonesboro, Arkansas. It happened on March 24th, 1998, and at that time was the second deadliest school shooting in U.S. history. What a coincidence. But if you let Mitch Wright tell it, he says it's an act of God. Mitch Wright lost his wife. She was a teacher at the Westside Middle School. And to him, it's no coincidence. It may truly, in fact, be an act of God. Because if you think 20 years ago this happened, and here's what Mitch said. He said, the history behind these in the last 20 years, it's kind of like this. You get a lot of coverage. You get a lot of lawmakers who are typically really adamant about making changes, making promises, and they typically jump ship kind of quick as soon as the NRA starts pulling their strings. I pray that that's not the same thing that will happen following the March for Our Lives. I pray that there is some change, especially considering even this week in Maryland, there was a school shooting. The gunman in that school shooting is dead. 2 other students were shot. When will it end? So if you are participating in the march, donating to the march, we have to stick together. We have to fight. We have to stand up to make a difference. So let's continue the fight. So if you are watching on YouTube and are planning to make the trip down to DC, listening on SoundCloud, also, I want to wish you safe travels as we unite together to make a difference. Let's get into political pop. Here's your political pop for Friday, March 23rd. This week, we're gonna head to Mississippi. So they passed a law earlier this month, making it illegal to get an abortion after 15 weeks. Well, there were some exceptions to that rule, but not including rape or incest. Well, the only abortion clinic in Mississippi sued. And you know what? A federal judge agreed and has temporarily blocked the new abortion law. I'm DanellaNOW, and that was your political pop. Also happened this week. Did you guys hear about this Uber driverless cars? Well, they're testing them out, or I should say, we're testing them out. Unfortunately, one of them killed a woman in Arizona. Yes, and there actually was a driver that was in the car. And what they're saying now is the driver in the car, she wasn't really paying attention, you know? So the Uber car is driving itself. The driver in the car, she's supposed to be monitoring the road. And it's coming out now that, you know, she was looking down, then looked up at the road, looked down again. And that's when the pedestrian was hit. There was a woman walking her bike across the street. She was struck and later died at the hospital. Sad. So now Uber has suspended its program to test out these driverless cars. Did they even have any business testing out these driverless cars? I say no. Uber, I say no. Also in the news, let's talk about an innovation in science. So there's a new breakthrough with stem cell research. Here's what happened. They had 2 patients, blind. With stem cell therapy, they were able to restore sight enough So both patients were able to read and recognize faces that were previously blurry to them. That is amazing. And they're saying that within a couple of years, this type of treatment may be available to everyone. That is a breakthrough. Already we've seen with the cochlear implants. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the cochlear implants, but they allow people who were born deaf, it allows them to hear. And so to think, I was thinking about this too. My grandmother, she wasn't born deaf, but later lost her hearing. And she actually had the cochlear implant, but was never, it was difficult because once you get the implant, you have to go through speech therapy and learn how to hear all over again with this device. And so for her in her later age, she wasn't really able to make use of her implant. But I do remember just thinking that how fortunate she was and other people to receive it, that were able to restore their hearing. And I always, you think about like not having your sight, how challenging that must be. And so it's great to see that there's some innovation happening with stem cell therapy. So we'll keep an eye out for that in the next couple of years. And now it's time for In Our World. And this week, we're talking about gossip clouding headlines and blocking real news. And I think it's on purpose. Here's why. This week alone, let's talk about some of the headlines. Okay. Suing Trump. Suing Trump is a former Apprentice contestant, a porn star, and a Playboy playmate. This is just ridiculous. And I get that this is news people want to know, but unfortunately it clouds the headlines of more important news that needs to be addressed. For example, $1 trillion deficits, that's important to talk about. Also, Boko Haram, they just released almost all of the girls that were kidnapped in Nigeria. And they said this when they returned, the schoolgirls. They said that if you don't want us to kidnap them, don't send them to school. Do not educate these young girls if you don't want them to be kidnapped. There's so many stories, and I don't, I can just only really speak for myself. I'm grateful and thankful to be able to have my own podcast in which I can choose what to talk about. But I tell you, I see so much gossip about Trump tweeted this and he did this. And I really filter my content through, well, what is news that can be actually helpful and what do we really need to know? And not that it's not important to know that these three women are suing Trump. Just when I think about it, for example, the porn star, she made accusations when he was running for president and nobody paid attention to it at all. And so now it's coming back out again. And when these things happen, I always have to search harder for other things in the news that we need to know about. It's just sad. Like, I never even thought I would think to myself, man, it was really nice having a president that had no scandals. I never thought of how great that was. I thought about it in the moment. I remember with President Obama, I remember thinking, we all were like, no scandals. But wow, with this presidency, it's not just scandals, but it's also ignorant comments. And there's so many other things that are being done that we don't even really know about. Laws being passed, laws being changed, and we can't really get access to that information as easy because of all of these random tweets and negative behavior and statements and firings and suings and shady business deals. It's just a sad, sad state of affairs. So what can we do, right? That's like the question. What can you personally do? And here's what I say is that when you see in the news, there's a lot of gossip, right? When you see that happening, that's when you really have to search, what else am I not being told? Yes, at least that's what I do. And it's hard, definitely hard. A lot of times you have to look for sources outside of America to find out what's happening. Sad but true. Also, you have to look at sources that aren't network news, other sources that challenge what we consider traditional news. And I know, having worked in a local newsroom, I remember seeing how the news came down. I remember, the news would come down from a wire, and then the producers would figure out, like, okay, what are we going to talk about? And in essence, you're then rewriting what you've been told the news is from the news wire. And not many have the ability to enterprise news stories. They don't. And that's why local newspapers are really important, because they really have to enterprise news stories. They have to go out, find the stories, and write about them. It's tough. I mean, true reporting is tough. It's truly tough. But we need it in order to truly be free and know what's going on. So it is important to note that, we got to work hard personally, on a personal level, to find out what's really happening in our world. Honestly, it is so much that a lot of times, don't you just feel that it's all clutter and you're tired of hearing any of it? I know a lot of people probably feel like they don't even want to watch the news or listen to the news, because you're just like, it's a bunch of negativity over and over and over. But we cannot be that way. We cannot. And I know, at least on my end, all I can do is try my best to filter out what I feel you need to know and what may not have as much shine as it needs. So even if it's just a few of us on this journey, those that listen on my podcast, those that are watching on the vlog, thank you so much for joining this journey with me. And to reaffirm, I will continue to do my best to filter through as best as I can. I don't got a whole team with me. Not yet on this journey. It's not a lot of us, but we in this together. And I will continue my best to try to filter out what I feel needs the most shine, what isn't being talked about. And I will continue to bring that to you. So as always, thank you so much for joining the show. Those of you that are participating in the march, if you listen to this show later in the week and you were in the march, I am thankful for you. So thank you. We must continue the fight together. Have an incredible weekend, and I will see you next week.